Alright, as promised, today we are making these super cute felt flowers, and mine is mounted onto an embroidery hoop, which is optional, but I'll show you how to do that. For this project, you are going to need various colors of felt that you're going to use to make your flowers. Whatever colors you have are totally fine. You're going to need some green felt, and that is going to be for your leaves. You're going to need a hot glue gun, a Sharpie and a pair of scissors, and tape, and this template that you're going to use. Also, like I said, optional embroidery hoop and fabric if you want to make the full artwork. Alright, so to begin, you are going to take your stencil that you're going to use for your flower and your leaf, and you're going to go ahead and cut them out. So there I am cutting out the leaves. Perfect. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut out the flower stencil. So as you can see, it's a pretty large shape, and you are going to cut all the way around. So I found it a little bit easier to start cutting with the straight line. And there we go at the end. Then go ahead and cut out the opposite side, which are going to be the petals once your flower is arranged. You can follow the template, it doesn't need to be perfect. Okay, so now we have our completed template that we're going to use in order to cut out the shape for our felt flowers. And here I am rearranging it just so it looks a little more like how it's supposed to look when it's done. Alright, you're going to take your stencil, put it straight on top of your felt, and then if you have double stick tape like I do, you can use that. Otherwise, you can just take regular tape and roll it into little circles. And you're going to tape your stencil down onto your felt. Tape it so that it's secure. You don't need to put pieces of tape on every single leaf, but you do want to put them on a fair number of them because you don't want it wiggling around while you're cutting. You're not going to do any tracing with this shape. You are just going to be taping and then cutting directly around the stencil itself. So go ahead and put your tape on as many petals as you feel like you need to make it stick. Perfect. Finishing up here. And if the tape sticks out a little bit, that's not a big deal. Go ahead and give it a press just to make sure that it's nice and tight on your felt. And then you're going to go ahead and start cutting. So just like with my stencil, I found it easier to cut the straight line first and then go along and cut that scalloped edge. So just cut all the way in your swirl to the middle of the stencil. And then cut those scalloped edges. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. They're all going to be wound together at the end, so you're not going to notice if a few of your petals look a little wonky or if your cutting wasn't great. Alright, so now we've used our stencil, we've cut out the base for our felt flower, and now we're going to go ahead and peel that stencil back off. So take your tape and your stencil and just peel it all off so that it's just that felt again. And you're going to want to hold on to your stencil. You will probably need to use it more than once. Okay, now let's go ahead and cut out our leaves. So we have our green felt here, and I have a really big sheet, so I'm going to cut mine into a little bit of a smaller sheet. Then for the leaves, just a single piece of tape. Stick it on the leaf, and then stick your leaf on your felt. And I found for the leaves, this was actually a little bit easier just to trace. So I traced my leaf shape, and I traced a little bit outside of the line so I gave myself some extra room to cut. Take your stencil off, and then go ahead and cut out your leaves. And just kind of follow those guidelines, knowing that you're going a little bit inside of them. Perfect. Now you have your leaves and you have the base of your flower. So now I'm going to go ahead and rearrange this swirl back the way that it's supposed to look, how it looked when it was in the stencil, when it was cut out, laid out perfectly. There we go. I have my swirl rearranged, and then I'm actually going to flip it. I found it easier to start gluing from the bottom. And here we are, we're gonna apply glue to our outline of our flower, and you're gonna apply along the non-scalloped edge. You're just gonna apply a thin line of glue using your hot glue gun, and just do a couple inches at a time. And then as you can see, I'm demonstrating with my fingers, you're gonna start rolling the fabric. So you're gonna put some glue on, start rolling, and then repeat the process over and over again until you get all the way to the end of your stencil. And you're gonna wanna do this fairly fast as hot glue does tend to dry, but also be careful, I burned myself multiple times while doing this project. So there you can see, I'm just gently rolling. Try to keep it looking circular. And just keep applying and rolling with that glue. And there you can see already it's starting to create that floral shape. As you roll, you want that bottom edge to line up as well. But we can fix that a little bit if it's not perfect at the end. And you may find it easier as you go along to start straightening out your felt like I'm doing. Straighten it out and then roll versus keeping it in that circular pattern shape. That's the end of my glue. And look, we already have a beautiful flower. So now I'm just gonna go ahead and clean up my flower. So there's some little chunks of glue there. There's some little fuzzies. So I'm just gonna clean up my flower, pick off all the extra little pieces. And then I flip my flower over and I'm just gonna kind of push the center in so that it makes a flat back. And that is gonna give it a really nice looking floral shape. Now let's attach our greenery. So just put a big swirl of glue on the piece of leaf and simply place your flower in the middle of it. Give it a couple wiggles just to make sure the glue is sticking and that it seems secure. Pull off any fuzzies. And there you go. You have your first flower completed. So much easier than it looks, and they turn out really nice. Okay, now I'm gonna show you how to make a slightly modified version of that same flower. This one, I'm using the same template, and I still have my double stick tape on from the last one because it's still sticky enough. And I'm just gonna go ahead and stick that flower on. Okay, get my template all stuck on there, and this time with my flower, I am going to follow the general guidelines of the template, but I'm actually going to make my edges triangular and pointed so that the flower looks a little bit different. So go ahead and tape it on, cut out just like you did with the last one, and then when you get to the end, you're gonna actually peel your template off at this point and snip your felt at the end of the floral pattern. And then starting from the middle, just like I'm doing here, you're going to make pointed edges instead of rounded edges. And these do not have to follow the template at all. Just kind of eyeball making zigzag patterned pointed edges onto your felt. It'll look great no matter how perfect it turns out. Okay, I've done it all the way across my felt, and now you can see those edges are not rounded, they are pointed. And this is just gonna create a little bit of a different effect on my flower. So you're gonna do the exact same thing you did last time. You're gonna take your glue, you're gonna do it in little chunks along the way as you glue and roll to create that flower. And this time I'm going clockwise instead of counterclockwise. It really doesn't matter which direction you roll, you just wanna be consistent with your roll. Great, and there you can see my slightly more pointed edged flower. And again, just clean it up a little bit and push that center down so that it creates a flat back. You can see I'm doing that right there. And for this flower, I also want to create slightly different leaves. I like that 4-point leaf shape, but just for fun, let's make some leaves that look like this. So these I actually just freehanded, just kind of what you think a leaf shape might look like, and I just freehand drew them onto my felt. After you've made your pattern, go ahead and cut it out. Again, inside of those lines a little bit with your Sharpie. And again, this doesn't have to be perfect. You can always revise if you don't like the way that the leaf is looking. Okay, there's my first leaf. And I'm going to make a second one that matches the first one to go on my flower. So I'm just going to go ahead and trace the one that I've already made just to save myself a little bit of heartache and headache. Okay, and once again, go ahead and cut out your leaf. So now I have 2 leaves, and it looks a little bit like a rose. Super cute. I'm going to play around with the placement of the leaves, how I want them underneath my flower, and I like how that looks. So now I'm going to take the bottom leaf, put a splotch of glue on there, glue the other leaf on top of it, and then put a big swirl of glue on the leaves, and stick my flower right in the middle. Sorry, my head got in the way there, but you can see now that it's finished. There is my second flower. So now I have 2 different flowers, and you can make as many of these as you want. They're really easy. Once you have the general idea down, you can do like me, you can make 4. You can make even more than that. And now I'm going to show you that process of the embroidery hoop. If you have one at home or if you want to purchase one, mine is around 6 inches. So you're going to take your hoop and loosen it, and it comes apart. There's 2 pieces. The piece with the metal is the bottom. So I'm just using a really basic muslin fabric here, and I'm just going to cut it roughly to size. If you have a fancy fabric, definitely use something colorful, patterned, whatever you feel like using. All right, and as you can see, it's extra large, but I want it a little bit big. And I took my bottom hoop, and it's underneath, and then I pressed that back hoop with the metal piece on top of it. And that creates a front pattern. Okay, I played around with it a little bit just to make sure that it felt tight, and then you can tighten the screw at the top if you want to make sure that it's really tight. Now to trim, just take your scissors, cut all the way into the fabric in the back, up to the embroidery hoop, and then place your hoop back on the ground and just trim all the way around close to the hoop. It doesn't have to be perfect. You're not going to be able to tell since this is the back side. Okay, and I flip it over, and now you can see how lovely that looks. We have our back side, and our front side looks perfect. So now, let's play around with placing our flowers on our fabric and our embroidery hoop. I'm being indecisive, so I'm going to mess around with it a little bit. And obviously, if you make more flowers, you can play around with putting multiple flowers on. I just made the 2 for today, and I like how that looks. So again, hot glue straight onto the fabric, and then stick your flower on. And on that one, just to demonstrate another way to do it, I put the glue directly onto the flower and then pressed it onto the fabric. And that's it.